Act 1, Departure, Episode 1. A young man falls into an abyss as he reminisces about his past trauma and agony. Though he may not realize it yet, this is his call to adventure. With this, he was reborn into a supernatural world where demons, gods, and elves roam. We see the boy receiving his magical education from his first mentor, Gus, the ghostly magician. The boy tells the audience that Gus is an eccentric one, but he likes him because Gus teaches the boy many things. Gus tells the boy that certain words have magical powers. Gus then demonstrates by writing the word Ignis, which spawns a flame. Then he uses the word Erasure to extinguish the flame. Later, the boy is introduced to the goddess of light, Gracefeel, by Mary the mummified princess. She is his second mentor. Gracefeel is the daughter of Earth goddess Mater and lightning god Volt. The boy, whose name is Will, asks Mary if she prays to Earth goddess every day. She avoids the question and asks him to have dinner. We see Blood, the skeleton warrior, Will's third mentor. He brings a boar for Will to eat. The boy is being raised by the three. He wonders where he came from and why he's the only human around. Turns out that Will has some faint memories from his past life, but he chooses not to tell them. Will finds his current life much more pleasant than his past life. Fast forward to some years later, Will is 8 years old and training with Blood and Gus. They both tell him that he needs more effort. Mary tells Will about the numerous beasts that roam the lands. Mary tells Will that Blood, Gus, and herself used to be humans. They made a contract with the god of the undead, Stagnate, when they died. This explains their supernatural appearance. During a spar, Will puts up a good fight at first, but is eventually overwhelmed by Blood. Blood recognizes Will's talent. Later, Will follows Mary and finds her surrounded by fire. He tries to save her, but is burned in the process. Will wakes up to find Mary completely fine. Blood and Gus scold him for being careless. Mary explains that every time she asks Earth Goddess for bread, she gets burned since she blasphemed against the goddess when she contracted with the god of death, Stagnate. Mary tells Will that she will still worship Earth Goddess Mater for Will's sake and since she's ashamed of what she's done. Episode 2. Will continues learning from Gus, Mary, and Blood. Will is now 13 and has learned a lot from the three. One day, Blood brings a low-level skeleton to fight Will. Will instantly defeats him. To spice things up, Blood takes Will to the City of Ruins. Humans and dwarves used to live in this city, but now it's abandoned and swarming with undead. Blood tasks him to escape this place as he disappears. Will instantly activates a light spell to illuminate the tunnel. He sees two undead walking to him, which he easily deals with. Determined to give his best in this test, Will continues moving forward. He encounters a demon skeleton which can use magic like Will. Will eliminates him, but his sword breaks in two in the process. Will takes the demon's spear, which turns out to be the property of a dwarf. As he's exploring his way out, he runs into someone who appears to be Gus, but his eyes are cold and he glares at Will. Will tries to talk to him, but Gus summons a golem to attack Will. Using his magic spear, Will kills the golem. As Will tries to run away, Gus uses a grease magic to trip him. Gus shows his overwhelming magical prowess and attacks Will. Will barely dodges the attacks and runs. Will then guesses that his spear might kill Gus. He turns around and lunges at Gus, however, he doesn't strike. Believing that Gus might be forced to act this way by someone else, he drops the weapon. Will tells Gus that he thinks of him as his grandpa and would never kill him even if it means death for Will himself. Gus reveals that it was all indeed a test. Gus plays it off casually while Will senses something is wrong. Will returns home and finds out that his spear is called Pale Moon. Words of creation are engraved on the spear, which allows the welder to lengthen and shorten the spear at will. Gus tells Will that his coming-of-age ritual is coming up. When Will turns 15, Blood will challenge him to a duel. Gus wants Will to lose the duel in a way that Blood doesn't notice. Will is angry to hear that Gus never tells him his reasons for doing something and keeping Will in the dark. Gus refuses to elaborate, so Will leaves. Episode 3. Will's coming-of-age ceremony is near. In preparation for the duel with Blood, Mary helps him get dressed. Will remembers what Gus told him about the duel, but he ignores it. Will approaches Blood and tells him he's ready. The duel begins and Blood pushes him back with his barrage of attacks. Will tries to get close to Blood but fails. Determined to close the gap, Will lunges forward and deflects the attack with his shield. He uses the momentum to climb up and tackles Blood down. Blood traps Will's sword in his ribs and throws him away. Will concedes and the match is over. Even though Will lost, Blood acknowledges his skill and prowess. Blood gives Will his most powerful demon blade, Overeater, as a gift. Will's new weapon will act as a supernatural aid for the rest of his journey. Whenever someone is cut with this blade, the wielder recovers his life energy. Blood tells him that it's time for him to know how he got here. About 200 years ago, an army of demons raided their continent led by their High King. Gods tried to stop them, but the damage was done. The High King was impossible to defeat. He used the Overeater. Gus came up with an idea to steal his weapon since the weapon gave him invincibility. Blood, Mary, and Gus teamed up to defeat the High King. Blood wasn't able to kill him, so the three placed a seal on him, trapping him beneath the land. After that, the death god Stagnate came to the three and offered them to become undead and fight alongside him. In exchange, he will get rid of the demons roaming this city. Gus became a ghost, Blood became a skeleton, while Mary turned into a mummy. Will was brought to them by demons. As they are talking, Stagnate appears and demands their souls according to the contract. Turns out that raising Will was part of the contract, and once the task is done, Stagnate no longer allows them to roam the city. Before Stagnate can take their souls, Gus shows up and tells Will to escape with Blood and Mary. Episode 4. Gus fights off Stagnate, however, he is sliced in half in the process. He wants to collect their souls, but also takes notice of Will. He wants Will to join him, but doesn't force him as he wants Will to decide for himself. Stagnate tells him he will be back tomorrow before leaving. He wakes up the next day to see the three recovered. The three try to assure him that they're fine and tell him to go and continue his journey on his own. Will can't take it anymore and reveals to them that he remembers his past life as a useless person. Will blames himself for getting the three in this situation. He remembers how in his past life he caused his parents' death and thinks this is where the three will end up. Mary slaps him and tells him to let go of his past. Will has proved that he's a hardworking and capable boy and should face his challenges head-on. As Will stands up, the other two tell him to keep his head up. Will gains enough courage to stand up to Stagnate. Will is now crossing into his first threshold. Our hero is ready to venture into the dangerous realm of actual battle where something important is at stake. He approaches him and tells him he won't agree to his demands. Will challenges him to a duel. Stargate summons an army of skeletons to kill Will. Will holds his own against the skeletons, and Stagnate is impressed. He offers him to turn into an undead so he can live forever with his three parents. Stagnate pours his blood into a goblet for him to drink. Will comes close to him and ponders for a little while. However, he changes his mind and uses his demon blade to cut off Stagnate's hand. His Overeater heals his wounds once Stagnate is struck. Before he can kill him, Stagnate knocks him unconscious. As Will is passed out, he meets the goddess of light, Gracefield. She was the one who helped him find his way to the new world once he died. She asks him why he rejected Stagnate's offer. Will tells her that in his previous life, he wasted all his time doing nothing. So in this life, he wanted to do what's right and live a glorious life before he died. Becoming immortal would not be any different to him than living his previous life. Gracefield gives Will her blessing. Will wakes up and Stagnate learns that Will has the divine protection from Gracefield. Will kills all the skeletons and attacks Stagnate, but he disappears. Will realizes that he must be after Blood and Mary, so he makes his way to the temple. Episode 5. Will reaches the temple to find out that Stagnate has already got to them. He leaps forward to stab Stagnate, but he won't make it in time. Suddenly, Earth Goddess Mater shows up to stop Stagnate. Will uses the opportunity to attack Stagnate. The three also help Will fight the undead god. Stagnate is stabbed by Will and driven to a wall. With this, Stagnate's avatar is defeated. Will is happy to see the three fine and out of danger. However, Blood and Mary reveal that they will die soon, as their contract with the undead god is broken. Shocked to hear this, Will starts crying. The two console him and tell him to be a good person after they are gone. They tell him to start a family one day and never forget what the two taught him. The four drink together and cherish this moment for the last time. Their souls depart as Will falls asleep. Gus doesn't die as he made a deal with Gracefield to continue guarding the seal they placed on the High King. As a parting gift, Gus gives Will his prized treasure. Before he leaves, Gus gives him his last name, Maryblood, by combining his two parents' names. William decides to use his G as his middle name to honor Gus. Will has now entered the belly of the whale. He has to venture into foreign lands that he has only heard stories about from his mentor, Gus. Act 2: Initiation. On his journey, William runs into many monsters and slays them. He passes by many abandoned lands and can't seem to find any humans. One day, he is forced to kill a charging wild boar who's been attacked by an arrow. He finally meets a person. The person appears to be a hunter. Will recognizes the bow and asks if he's an elf. The person reveals that he is indeed an elf. The two negotiate as to who should keep the boar. Will and the elf decide to divide it in half. The elf introduces himself as Meneldor. The two eat and eventually part ways after Will asks for directions. When Will is sleeping, Gracefield gives him a vision that Meneldor is in danger. Will wakes up and runs to rescue Meneldor. Will reaches a nearby village and finds that it's been attacked by raiders. Will realizes that Meneldor is the one leading the raiders. Using his magic and superior weaponry, Will knocks out Meneldor. The villagers thank him for his help. The raiders reveal that their town was ravaged by demons and they were left with no food or shelter. They resorted to raiding towns to feed themselves. Using Gus's treasure, Will offers the townspeople compensation. Will promises the raiders that he will help them get rid of the demons. Episode 7. Will takes Menel with him as he heads to the town. They reach the town and Will begins slaying the beasts. Once Will has killed most of them, the two look for survivors, but there aren't many left. They came across a boy who's been turned into an undead. Will asks Gracefield to bless his soul and guide it to the afterlife. Menel is impressed by William and joins him as the two peacefully grant the undead a peaceful afterlife. The village wise woman, Marple, who is apparently a ghost, informs them about the demon stronghold. The remaining villagers eventually return and bury their dead. Menel asks William to make him his pupil so he can become blessed by the goddess of light. William agrees to take him in. Episode 8. The town is severely damaged and some tools will be needed to rebuild it. The two make their way to Whitesales to purchase the tools. On their way, they run into a man and a halfling being chased by a giant ape. Will saves the two by scaring away the ape. The halfling introduces herself as Robina Goodfellow, while the man introduces himself as Tonio. Since Tonio is a trader, he's more than happy to help them find tools in the Whitesale market. Will uses his healing abilities to bring customers to Tonio, while Robina sings songs. Later, Robina sings songs about the three heroes who defeated the High King. Will instantly recognizes the three as Blood, Mary, and Gus. He's glad to hear that their names are remembered. He learns from the song that the three once rescued a half-elf girl and her boyfriend from being sacrificed to a wyvern. As the group travels together, William learns that a battle for succession is happening between the previous king's successor, Prince Owen, and his brother and Whitesale's ruler, Prince Ethelbald Rex Fertile. Episode 9. Upon reaching Whitesale, Will sees the developed human world for the first time. He's amazed to see how far humans have come. He later meets a high-ranking bishop, Bart, who tells him that most people don't have faith in Gracefield anymore due to the war with the High King. Later, when William is with his group, the town is attacked by a wyvern. The townspeople are no match for the fierce wyvern. Will tries to use his long-ranged magic attacks, but fails. Menel tells him that he needs to be more precise if he wants to take the beast down. Will asks Tonio and Robina to tell the people to clear the town. Menel brings his fairies to guide Will's magic. The two work together to take the wyvern down. Will stabs him, but it isn't enough to kill him. Before the wyvern can breathe fire, Will strangles him to death. The town is saved, and Will is hailed as a hero, the Wyvern Slayer. Later, the Crown Prince asks to see Will. The prince acknowledges Will's bravery and skill. Will uses the opportunity to ask the prince to help him get rid of the demons in the surrounding regions. However, the prince refuses since he doesn't trust Will yet. So Will instead asks for permission to hire adventurers and mercenaries to kill the demons on his own. Episode 10. The prince is impressed by Will's straightforward nature and decides to make him a paladin. Will also meets the bishop's stepdaughter as they make their way back. He finds that since 200 years have passed, the way priests offer their prayers has been changed. Later, Will and Menel look for mercenaries who are willing to take on the quest of combating demons. Luckily, some adventurers join him on this quest alongside Rastov, a renowned warrior. With this, Will's real road of trials begins. Episode 11. Will sets off with his team of warriors to combat demons and help people from the villages. They handed out supplies to affected towns so they could rebuild their villages. Rastov shows off his skills when he kills demons instantly. William hears about a search party that has gone missing in the woods. Will, Menel, and Rastov investigate the disappearance and find dead bodies of the mercenaries along with gigantic footprints. William senses that something is not right. He realizes that this is actually a trap, but by now, it's too late. Giant demon beasts show up in hordes to kill the squad. Will blesses the group with divine power while Menel calls his fairies. As Will is blocking the beasts, a chimera shows itself and injures Menel. Will feels as if Graceful has abandoned him. He tries to use thunder magic, but it misfires and he's stuck. As a last resort, he brings his overeater to combat the demons. Any injuries he suffers are healed once he strikes the demons. He has abandoned all he has learned. He's only relying on blind rage and his demon blade to battle his foes. Once he has killed all the demons, he tries to heal Menel, but he passes out. He wakes up to find himself in bed. Rastov tells him that Menel's condition is stable, but he hasn't woken up yet. He tells William to get some rest. Will blames himself for getting everyone in this situation. He gets up and heads on his own to confront the demons. Episode 12. As Will is leaving, he is stopped by Menel. Menel refuses to let him leave alone, so he starts attacking him. As they fight, Menel convinces him that he shouldn't go alone. Menel tells Will that he values their friendship and he is grateful to be by his side. The two return to the squad and everyone makes up a plan to defeat the chimera and the other demons. The team gathers at the valley and begins eliminating the demons. With Gracefield's blessing, the team has no difficulty killing the hordes. Will and Menel are confronted by the chimera, which appears to be operated by a demon. The chimera reveals that the demons want to take over the city of the dead so they can release the High King. The two work together to bring down the chimera. While Menel distracts the chimera with his fairies, Will lands the critical strike. After taking care of the chimera, they find out that Rastov has already killed the chief demon. Act 3. Return. The village celebrates their victory, and Will accepts the official governorship over the Beastwood. As an official, Will re-promotes Gracefield's faith among the masses. Through his action, he carries out the will of his guardian goddess as he had promised. With his unshakable faith in Gracefield and his unmatched skill in the battlefield, our hero has now become the master of the two worlds.